7. Pieces. The following week, I tried to listen to guided meditations as Lynn had suggested. At this time, you would often find me at 3 in the morning drinking coffee, smoking cigarette after cigarette, journaling, or just sitting and thinking on my back patio. I had been talking with my brother Greg, whom had also been learning more about the metaphysical world and spirituality. I had shared my Reiki experience and my chakra healing and balancing with Greg and Mother. I was still very angry over what had happened with Devlin and Trisha, which I also shared. I was still trying to figure out what they did to me and what exactly they hadn't told me. Greg suggested I write a book about my experiences. My mom's side of the family and I had always talked about paranormal stuff, and we all knew who Edgar Casey was. When my aunt visited or we visited her in Canada, she always shared paranormal stories. My aunt had a past life regression done years ago, and she had found out that she had been a school teacher in Atlantis. Her stories always fascinated me. My mother would say that her mother was also spiritually gifted. I didn't know my mother's mother very well. I never got the impression that she was spiritually gifted. My brother Greg claimed he could see ghosts. I couldn't see ghosts, I could only feel their presence. It was interesting that Greg had been on a spiritual journey and had been watching a lot of the Gaia channel and YouTube videos. He knew a lot of what I was talking about, like chakras, healing, and the dark side. He knew of spiritual guides and angels. He was more interested in extraterrestrials, conspiracy theories, and the impacts of chemtrails. None of that interested me. I was on a spiritual journey and would explain that I am only focused on locally, not globally. Greg had suggested that there were energies that were waking me up and that these energies were spirit guides. After not having been around Greg in the past 5 years, I had a hard time giving credence to what he was saying to me. Later that evening, I searched the internet for information on what I was experiencing, what a spirit guide is, anything of a spiritual nature, and anything connected. I couldn't take what Greg was saying as the gospel. I was so tired from the lack of sleep, I was waking up drenched in sweat, and it wasn't from hot flashes. In late December of 2016, I had moved into one of the rentals I had gotten in the divorce. My house had central heat and air conditioning, so it was nice and cool. I attributed this sweating to detoxing. I was suffering from bloodshot eyes and blurry vision. I wasn't feeling all that great. I felt like I was coming down with something. I was having pressure headaches that seemed to be right across my brow. They didn't cause me pain, but it was uncomfortable from the pressure. Sometimes the pressure seemed like a swirling mass. The only way I can explain the swirling mass is if you have ever seen the movie Flubber with Robin Williams. The flubber would move a certain way, and that's how the pressure on my forehead and brow would move. I was trying to take better care of myself by allowing myself to stay put and sit on the couch all day if I wanted to. I was constantly crying. It seemed like there wasn't a day or hour that would go by without me crying for 6 consecutive weeks. I was a wreck. Friends told me I should keep myself busy and work more. I didn't agree with this, because that's exactly what I had been doing all my life, just plowing through and moving on. I figured that I had never made time or space and allowed myself to properly grieve my grandparents, Parker, and the other relationship losses in my life. I was beginning to put some pieces of the puzzle together about Devlin. Devlin didn't want me to hang out with Cindy or Parker. The whole weird thing with my clothes in my dryer. Devlin had once helped me fold my clothes. When she folded my jeans, she was overly excited and asked what size jeans they were. I told her, but she didn't believe me. She said, "Oh, these are small." It was some odd behavior to me. It wasn't so much about the size of the jeans, it was about her behavior. It was like she was getting a thrill out of touching my clothes. There were times I thought Devlin was jealous of me. Sometimes I even thought she wanted to be me. I was still going over why would Devlin lash out at me like she had. What was her big payoff? What was she going to get out of me having Reiki? I saw us as just being friends. I believed she felt that she had moved mountains to help me. This is when the wheels and cogs lined up for me and it crossed my mind that Devlin was in love with me. Her big payoff was to have my undying love and gratitude. It was unsettling that this longtime friend of mine had been in love with me and never said anything to me about it. I didn't have a clue that she was in love with me. I recalled that she had brought me some used clothes a couple of months back. I found it odd that she had brought me some clothes. I had thoughts that maybe Devlin practiced magic. I had no idea about that, and maybe she had put some sort of spell on the clothes she had given me. I immediately went and got those clothes and threw them out. I felt a little crazy thinking this, but it didn't hurt to get rid of the clothes she had given me. I was trying to find answers to many things at once and was beating myself up for not getting it. I'm intelligent. I was having a problem that I was not getting what I was supposed to from what I was experiencing. My mind was racing all the time with constant thought. I was thinking so fast sometimes I would forget what my last thought was. Some of these thoughts were emotional. They seemed to disappear as quickly as they came to me. I was having flashes of memories and glimpses of patterns of behavior toward me throughout my lifetime. Sometimes when I was trying to recall what I was thinking, I would smell the essential oil that Lynn had used during my healing session. I knew that as these things were happening to me, they were essentially rewriting me in a way. As if the garbage was being taken out and I was learning how to let go of it. So I could see what happened and rewrite my patterns of behavior, feelings, beliefs, and thoughts. I thought maybe I should rule out any medical issues. I was in a position with my medical insurance. I had to wait for 3 months before seeing my doctor. That 3 months was almost up. I called my insurance company to see if it was possible to get in sooner, and they suggested that I go to either urgent care or the emergency room. I had gone to urgent care and was prescribed 9 different medications for what the doctor thought were raging infections of the ear, nose, and throat. I knew I didn't have any infections. I have had sinus infections and they are very painful. I didn't have any pain. After a week, I still wasn't feeling any better. So I decided to go to the emergency room. The emergency room doctor diagnosed me with having allergies and I was prescribed antihistamines. It was ridiculous feeling so sick, and the doctors couldn't find anything seriously wrong with me. A few weeks later, I had my doctor's appointment and did lab work. The lab work showed that my glucose, HDL, and chloride levels were just slightly higher than average. My DHEA sulfate was by far higher than the rest of the lab results. I researched what this was and how I could change this. I found something interesting in my research and it correlated higher DHEA sulfate levels with PTSD. I don't think that the medical field has done enough research on the subject. I had been reading Repressed Memories, A Journey to Recovery from Childhood Sexual Abuse by Renee Fredrickson. In the book, she discusses PTSD and sexual abuse. I thought that it was possible for me to be suffering from PTSD all my life and not knowing it. And here, I was finding a correlation between PTSD and this elevated DHEA sulfate. I was starting to believe that I suffered from PTSD and never knew it. I never felt any other way than what I felt. So how would I know that I could feel any different? Was it possible for me to have lived with PTSD all my life and not be aware of it? It was a possibility. Repressed Memories, A Journey to Recovery from Sexual Abuse helped me a lot. I knew I wasn't alone. I knew there were far worse cases than mine. The book covered some methods of how to retrieve the repressed memories. It made me question whether or not my mother may also have been sexually abused. The book talked about the different roles family members play around sexual abuse victims. My supernatural experiences got weird, and they were about to get weirder. I developed rashes, but they weren't itchy rashes. I had a set of rashes that emerged on my legs. Imagine if somebody had poured boiling hot water on your legs and what the redness would be like from the burn without any blisters. That's what this rash looked like. It was the oddest thing. I paid attention to how I was sitting to see if they would go away with a different position. The rash remained for over an hour. I also experienced leg shaking when sitting. It was more of a rumbling, like a tremor. I had only previously experienced this when I was sitting in my backyard, lost in thought. This time, I couldn't control the shaking and it would come in little spurts. I had never experienced anything like it. I knew I probably wasn't sick with anything that would cause it. I knew it was related to whatever I was going through spiritually. In my searches on the internet of all the things that were happening to me, I was learning why I was going through all this weird shit. I read multiple websites on the same subjects. Each subject will lead me to another subject. I wanted to have a clear, basic understanding. Trust me, I don't believe everything on the internet. It was important for me to have more than a dozen searches with the same information. I wanted to be sure that if I was self-diagnosing, that I was diagnosing myself properly. I surmised that I was going through a spiritual awakening and I was also dealing with the dark night of the soul. Spiritual awakening and dark night of the soul seemed to fit the rashes, leg shaking, insomnia, racing thoughts, night sweats, etc., and not having anything medically wrong with me. One afternoon, I was sitting at my desk chair in my living room, shredding paper. I experienced the taste of cilantro in my mouth. I hadn't eaten any cilantro, nor did I have any in or around my home. The taste of cilantro became stronger and stronger. It was as if I was actually eating it. In my mind, I heard my mother say, "Oh, this is so good. Oh my God, this is so good." My first impulse was to call my mother and ask if she was eating cilantro. I didn't call her. I waited a couple of days and asked her about this experience of eating cilantro and it being good. She confirmed that she in fact had been eating cilantro and eats it on a regular basis. This is an odd experience that I don't recall ever having had before. It didn't freak me out. I was in awe and taken aback. It was making me more aware that maybe I was manifesting some spiritual perceptions, this one being clairgustance, meaning clear tasting. I thought maybe I should pay more attention to my intuition and be more aware of my senses. I was sensing that I was supposed to become a spiritual leader. I had no idea what was in store for me and what I was put here to do. A day or two after tasting cilantro, I woke up at 3 once again. That morning, I was smelling some stinky perfume. You know, the kind that maybe Patty the daytime hooker would wear. The kind of perfume that gives you a headache and makes you gag. The smell seemed to be coming from the backyard, and I thought, well, my bartender neighbor was wearing a new perfume, or she had a friend over. I hadn't smelled it before and never smelled anything but weed from my bartender neighbor's yard. I went back inside the house, but I could still smell it. I went back outside, and the scent was getting stronger and stronger. It was happening again. But this time, I couldn't pin it on a person. All I was picking up with my intuition was that this person lived northeast from me. My logical brain went through my friends list of whom might wear perfume like that. I contacted one of my friends, and she said she had bought some new perfume, but it wasn't making her sick. I was telling my friend Cindy about these things that were happening to me. She told me that on the day I had smelled the perfume, one of her coworkers had worn some smelly perfume that made her sick. Cindy's workplace had a no-fragrance policy. That day, it was broken. Funny thing is, Cindy did live northeast of me. What was coming next? I had no idea. All I could say to myself was, "Buckle up, bitch, and brace yourself." I was searching for answers. I didn't know what to read. I didn't know who to go to for help. I tried listening and dancing to music. I started to go back to the things from my late teens and early 20s that made me feel happy, strong, and free. I had gone to many concerts in Berkeley and San Francisco. One of the bands I had seen was Operation Ivy at 924 Gilman Street. I would find different music on YouTube and Spotify to listen to. I stumbled upon Tim Armstrong's music. First, I listened to Tim Timebomb and Friends, then A Poet's Life, and then finally a transplant song, DJ DJ. The lyrics of DJ DJ spoke to me. It was my medicine. It was my power. I adopted DJ as my theme song. Later, I adopted Into Action as my theme song and even have it as my ringtone to this very day. Music and dancing have always played a big part of my life. My dad played the drums, and there were many weekend mornings that I would be awakened by the sound of drums and music. I remember doing The Bump with my brother Greg when The Hustle would be played. I can't remember if my dad had played for money before I was 10, but I know that he had played at a few bars when I had moved back to Modesto. My dad learned to play the drums by ear. He also played the trumpet and the piano by ear. My mother had taken piano lessons when she was a child. My father bought my mom a piano when I was 5 years old. We had a room designated as the music room at our house in Fair Oaks. I never played any instruments as a child, but have always wanted to learn how to play the drums. I have always had an appreciation for music. I would listen to Casey Kasem's Top 40 Countdown on the radio every Saturday. I think I attended every single high school dance. But it wasn't until my late teens that music really became influential in my life. I listened to a lot of different music. You can keep classical or country. It's not my genre. Anybody who listens to music will have a music soundtrack to their lives and what was happening in their lives at the time that a song was popular or playing. The music we hear stays with us and reminds us of those times. I had been to some bigger concerts by the time I was 18, but it was the smaller venues that intrigued me. That's where a nobody band could be the next big thing or have the next big sound in music. 924 Gilman Street is an all-ages club in Berkeley. It was one of those smaller venues. It still exists today. Graffiti covers absolutely everything, including the toilet seats. It was just so punk rock. It was cool. I felt free at this time because I was about 100 miles away from home and experiencing life. I was fortunate enough to go see Operation Ivy play twice at Gilman Street, shortly before they disbanded. Tim Armstrong was a singer and guitarist in Operation Ivy. Later, he and former bandmate Matt Freeman formed the band Rancid, among his other musical projects. It's probably coming off as though I have a crush on Tim. That's not the case. I have a respect for him as a storyteller. He's a songwriter, but it's through his lyrics that his story is revealed. Tim tells it like it is. I connect with the music, lyrics, and stories. That's it. It's as simple as that. Operation Ivy has been credited as being one of the most influential bands that have incorporated punk rock with ska, and in turn, creating a unique style of music. Operation Ivy's music has influenced many different bands, and many bands have done covers of their songs. Green Day is one of those bands. Green Day gives credit to Operation Ivy for the beginning of their music career. Operation Ivy helped Green Day get a gig at 924 Gilman Street. As far as I know to this day, Green Day will pull audience members onto the stage to play Operation Ivy's song, Knowledge. I wasn't going to tell the story, but it's a story I tell repeatedly. Maybe this will be the last time I tell it. In 1989, I had taken a friend of mine to a Social Distortion concert at the Fillmore. The opening band was playing, and we didn't have any interest in seeing them. We were outside a couple of blocks away smoking. 3 guys approached us with this plastic milk crate full of 45s that they were selling. I can't remember how much they were selling them for, but we didn't buy one. I regret not buying one. They seemed very full of themselves, proclaiming that they were going to be the next big thing. We had gone back and forth with them about how cool Operation Ivy was, and that they probably hadn't seen them. Joke was on us. They knew them personally. Well, those 3 guys turned out to be Green Day. It's kind of a cool story, like how Parker was best friends with Kurt Hammond of Metallica and went to school with Les Claypool.